Hi, Phyllis here, southernfrugal.com. Well, we're going to make that ciabatta bread today. I made the other recipe, and to my surprise, it did turn out well. And guess what? We've eaten all of it. We ate some of it with soup, and then we had some eggs and ham for supper last night, and we ate the rest of it. It's delicious. Now, a word about that is, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference what recipe you use, because they're all basically the same. But what it is this is really a no-knead bread. And it kind of reminds me of the kind of bread maybe people would be making in Italy when they didn't have time to do any kneading and all that. So they just mix it together, parts of it, leave it sitting on the counter, let the yeast multiply, and then come back several hours later, add some more flour or whatever to it, and then just kind of throw it in a pan and let it rise again and bake it. Anyway, it's quite delicious, y'all. It reminds me of a cross between sourdough bread, although it's not much like sourdough, but a little bit, and just regular Italian bread. That's kind of what it reminds me of, but it's quite delicious. All right, so I'm going to give you the ingredients that we're going to use, and this is just really a basic recipe. So it's I've got it all written out here. Now I'm going to use a little bit of a different technique than some of the recipes I looked at. Anyway, so we're going to use 1.5 cups of cool water. So I'm just using some, like right out of the tap. So 1.5 cups of cool water. And for this first part of it, we're going to use 2 cups of flour. Now the total flour you're going to use is 3.5 cups. So I just went ahead and measured mine all out to start with. So I'm going to put in 2 cups, if I can get that out of that bowl. All right, there's 1 cup. That's good enough for 2 cups. Okay, now the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of yeast, but in the beginning you only use 1 teaspoon. So we're going to use 1 teaspoon, just sprinkle that in. And the recipe also calls for 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and I'm using that Himalayan pink salt, but again I'm going to set that aside, set the yeast aside, and I'm going to set the flour aside, because I know that's going to be what goes in the recipe after it really does its thing for several hours. So I'm just using a whisk to mix this up. And I did use filtered water, by the way, some water that does not have chlorine in it, which would be better. And if you don't have any filtered water, the way to get rid of the chlorine is to measure the water out the night before and just leave it in an open cup, and that chlorine will evaporate. All right, so we got it all mixed up. Now the purpose of this first mix is to greatly multiply your yeast. So I'm just mixing that up. You don't have to mix it too much. And the other thing that's going to happen is that the gluten in the flour is going to be just greatly enhanced. I mean, a lot. In fact, after this gets through, you can like pull it and it'll just stretch forever. So anyway, that's all there is to the first part of it. So now I'm just going to put some saran wrap on here. And I think I'm going to just actually sit it in my cold oven. I might turn the light on in there for a little while just to kind of help it along. But this you can just leave out on your counter overnight. You can leave it for several hours, which is what I'm going to do. Or you can just, I don't know, let it sit maybe about 3 or 4 hours and wait till it gets all bubbly and foamy looking, okay? And then we'll come back and show you the next step in this. It's really not hard at all. All right, we'll be back. Okay, we are back to finish up with our bread, and I did have it in the oven with just the oven light on, which creates the perfect warm temperature. All right, so now the dough should look real foamy. I mean real foamy. So have a look. Let me move y'all really close so you can see it. See all the bubbles and everything? Okay, so now we're going to add the balance of the flour. Let me get it right there. And we're also going to add the salt and the other teaspoon of yeast. So I'm just going to put that in, sprinkle it right on top. And then I'm going to put the rest of the flour in. Now again, this bread, you don't really need it at all. I'm just going to dump that in. And then I'm going to dump the 1½ teaspoons of salt right on top of that. I don't want to put the salt right directly on that yeast. Okay. Now, the next thing we do is just mix this up. And I'm just using a spoon. Now, if it's too soupy, I'll add another little bit of flour. See how stringy it is? That's that gluten all in there. Oops, making a mess. So you want it to sort of come together in a kind of a blob. Work that flour in. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is sprinkle a little flour on top of it and get some around the edges. Get some around the bowl. And some around the bottom. That's probably about ½ a cup of flour actually. Now normally on the ciabatta bread, they just leave it sitting on the counter. But I'm sort of pretending it's summertime, and even though it's not, and putting mine in the oven with the light on just to help it along a little bit. Now it's going to be a sticky dough, but we want that flour all around in the bowl. And now we're going to cover it up. And we're going to wait another hour, maybe 2 hours, till it puffs all up again. And again, this is not all that much work, but it is, it kind of really takes all day, but you can do all kinds of other stuff in between all this. And is it worth it? Oh yes, it's very definitely worth it. All right, once this doubles up in bulk, we'll be back. Hi, we're back, and the dough for the ciabatta bread has doubled in bulk. In fact, it's a little more than doubled. So I've had it in the oven with the little light on in there for, I don't know, a couple of hours, maybe longer. So now it's a real sticky dough. So we're going to just kind of gently let it go down. And we're going to try to get this out of the bowl. Now normally with bread you would grease the bowl or put oil on it. And so what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to use my scissors. Or why don't I just use this? This is a little pizza cutter. See if we can do it like that. Yeah, that'll work. Cut it right down the middle. And I've already greased with some shortening 2 9-inch cake pans. And I'm doing that because I want it to rise up more than what you would normally see. So I'm going to put some oil on my hands. Just a little bit. I heard Mr. Bucky just come in. So please excuse my dogs because I know they're going to be barking. All right, let's just dump this over in the pans. Now you're deflating it when you're taking it out, of course. All right, so there's one pan. This had some of that flour not soaked up with the dough, so we're going to do this end. You can come on in, I'm just recording.
Okay.
We just got back from the store to get an air tank or something else for the RV.
And they were out of it.
They were out of air tanks?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so now we still don't have an air tank. Okay, so we got this down.
We got one up at Mount Red.
Okay, so we're going to spread this out. And the reason I used the Crisco rather than the oil is because that yeast will start digesting the oil. So when I fixed it a couple of days ago, it stuck to the pan somewhat, so I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. Okay, so there's one pan. Now it's a very sticky dough. So I'm going to put a little flour on top because most of the time it has the flour on top of it. It's almost like fixing a pizza dough, except the dough is much, much stickier. And because of the long time that it takes you to make it, sometimes the stuff kind of turns a little sour, kind of like sourdough. Not as much, but somewhat like it. Okay, so we're going to let this sit back in the oven with that little light on. See, it still feels it's a little warm. And we're going to let it double in bulk, and then we're going to bake it. All right, we'll be back. Here's both of them. All right, we'll be back. Okay, I am going to go ahead and bake this bread because I'm just tired of waiting. I did put a pan of water, that was sort of hot water, just to keep everything moist. And because some recipes said to spritz the loaves with water, and I just really didn't want to do that. But anyway, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut the oven on to, and please excuse my dirty oven, I hardly ever do the self-cleaning thing. Anyway, what I'm going to do is cut the oven on and turn it to 425, so it'll take it a little while to warm up, which will give the bread even more time to expand. And we're going to cook it for about 20 to 25 minutes after the oven's warmed up. So I'm guessing 25 to 30 minutes. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on now. Put it on bake at 350, 375, 400, 425. And we're going to, let's just set it for 25 minutes. We'll just set it for 25 minutes and take a look at it. I know y'all can't really see that. Okay, so it's going to rise up probably right much more while the oven's warming up. All right, when this gets done, we'll be back. Okay, we took the bread out of the oven, and it's supposed to have this little flour on the top of it. Sounds hollow. Anyway, we're going to let it cool for just a little bit. I'm warming up the soup so we can have it with some soup. And so we're going to let it cool for 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll be back. Okay, I didn't let it cool but about 5 minutes because we're ready to eat. Okay, what's a good description of ciabatta bread would be the big holes and the uneven air pockets in there. They're like that. All right, we're going to put some butter on this, have our soup that I made today, and we will see y'all next time. Bye for now.